Hey everybody, how's it going? Jesús Ramirez here. Thank you so much for joining me in this special holiday week here at Adobe Live. How are you? I see familiar faces in the chat already. Marsha, Catherine, Alejandro, Jack, Lisa, RB, Cody Bear. Thank you so much for being here. Super awesome. I hope everybody's having an awesome week, especially during this amazing holiday season. So today we're going to be working with Photoshop and Adobe Firefly to create a snow globe composition. So usually when I come into Adobe Live, I show you guys how to use Adobe Stock to find images and combine them together to create a scene in Photoshop. But today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to start with Adobe Firefly to generate our assets and then take those into Photoshop to create a snow globe composition. And we'll take that snow globe composition into Adobe Express to animate it. So we're going to try to do all that in the next hour. Also, there is a sweepstakes going on. I'm sure you guys will be pasting the link in the chat. I'm not really sure who my moderator is, but you guys will, I'm sure I'll see the link in the chat coming up soon for the sweepstakes we have going on for this week. Andrew Kavanagh in the chat. Hey, Andrew, how's it going? Good to see you. Andrew runs a really popular Photoshop group on Facebook. Feel free to drop that link in the chat, Andrew. It's a great resource if you're trying to learn Photoshop or Lightroom. Awesome. So I'm going to switch over to my screen now. And this is going to be the final composite. It might look a little different because we're going to generate the images in Firefly. So even though you might type in the same prompt, you won't always get the same result. So this is basically what we're going for, but it could be a little different once we are done. So there we go, blank document. And this is where we're going to start. Like I said before, we're going to go into Adobe Firefly. And by the way, this is the Adobe Live Holidays Week sweepstakes. And I see Cody Bear in the chat is letting us know all about that. And make sure that you come in here and participate and qualify to win some cool prizes. But anyway, so Adobe Firefly, firefly.adobe.com. What is Firefly? I'm sure you all know by now, but just in case you don't, it's generative AI that allows you to create an image using text to image. Basically, you type in a phrase, it generates an image for you. Generative fill, which is very similar to Photoshop, where you make a selection around something, type in a prompt, and generate something else. In this case, the example is showing us how this gentleman here is getting a Christmas sweater, all kinds of different sweaters. And then text effects, generative recolor, which allows you to regenerate colors on vectors. You have that available in Adobe Illustrator. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to generate assets for our composite, our snow globe composite, using the text to image module. So if you click on this blue button that reads generate, it'll take you to this page. You'll have samples that you could use. For example, if you like this little cool looking alien, you can just click on view samples, and then Firefly will give you the prompt that was used for that, along some of the styles and effects. And we'll talk about those a little later on. But from here, you can make any adjustment you want, or you can start with your own prompt by inputting it into this box, which is what we will do. And as I mentioned before, we're going to start with a snow globe. So I'm just going to type in the word snow globe. And just to show you how this works, snow globe, right? So snow globe, I don't even know if I spelled that correctly. I think it's 2 words. Who knows? Prompt is too short. Usually you get this notice if you put in a prompt that's 3 words or less. I think snow globe is 2 words. Let me know in the chat. I don't know how to spell. I became a designer because I didn't want to write things, but I guess now I have to learn how to write and spell correctly. And, we got a beautiful snow globe. But the problem with this is that I didn't give Firefly enough information to generate what I want. It's usually a good idea to be descriptive, use descriptive phrases, use adjectives and nouns. That helps a lot. So how can we improve this? Well, I can come in here and type empty snow globe. Empty snow globe. And I want to have a cool looking background so I can tell Firefly what background to generate. But actually, before I do that, I'm just going to generate this just so you can see the way something works. Let me just click on generate. And Firefly, when you generate something, Firefly looks at your prompt and it tries to guess whether you want a photo or art or an illustration. This is what the content type is here on the right, photo or art. Notice that by default, the content type is set to auto, which again means that Firefly will determine based on your prompt what you want to generate. In this case, it assumed I wanted a piece of art, but I don't want that. I actually want a photo. So I'm going to click on photo and I'll click on generate. And Firefly will generate a snow globe now, an empty snow globe. And the reason that I want it to be empty is because I want to composite stuff into it. And I don't want it to have a bunch of stuff inside that then I have to mask out. So I'm trying to generate something that's already empty, like these guys here, so that it makes it easier in the compositing process. And by the way, let me look at the chat and see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions. Awesome. Feel free to leave your questions in the chat as I walk through Firefly and Photoshop. Also, feel free to let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm streaming from the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area in Morgan Hill, California, south of San Jose. Anyway, so now that I have this result, I can start making other changes. For example, a slider that I recommend experimenting with is the visual intensity. Basically, you can think about it like this. When you drag the slider to the far right and generate, the resulting variations, the images that Firefly creates, the resulting variations will be more heavily stylized. And you'll see what I mean by that in a moment. Just let it generate the results. And there you go. See how this is much more stylized than compared to when I drag this to the far left and generate. The results will be more simple. They won't be as heavily stylized. And again, nothing feels longer than waiting for Firefly to generate while you're streaming, because I have to just talk and just wait for it to do its job. So that's the most difficult thing about streaming and using Firefly. You have to wait. But anyway, see how these are not as stylized as before. Here's a pro trick. If you make an adjustment and you want to compare it to what you had before, just hit the back button on your browser and see the difference. So with the visual intensity all the way to the right, the results are very stylized. And with the visual intensity to the left, they're just very plain images. So what I'll do is I'll split it in the middle and we'll work at the default setting. Another thing that is super cool with Firefly is that when you choose the content photo type, you get access to the photo settings. If you're a photographer, then you're going to love this. You have access to adjust the aperture, shutter speed, and field of view. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. You have the labels here below the sliders that tell you exactly what those sliders control. And also, if you want more information, you can hover over the slider and you can see a description of how it works for what that controls. Another cool thing is, for example, under shutter speed, notice that when I hover over the shutter speed here, you can see that with a low shutter speed, you can see the individual lights in the cars there on the Golden Gate. But if I drag the shutter speed to the right and hover over again, now you can see the motion blur of those lights. So the previews change as you adjust the slider. So that's a super cool feature. So this is something you can use when you're generating your images. Now, as I mentioned before, it helps to be more descriptive when you are typing your prompts. So I'm going to save myself some time in Photoshop. So I'm going to tell Firefly to also generate a background for me, so that it's easier for me when I'm compositing in Photoshop, so that I don't have to do a whole bunch. So empty snow globe with, if I can spell, with bokeh lights in the background with a blue tint and blurry snow in the foreground. Let's see if that works. I'll hit generate, and now I should get an image that is photorealistic, that is closer to what I had in mind Also, if I don't get the results that I want, once again, I can use these photo settings. So I talked about having a blurry snow in the foreground. So maybe I can increase the aperture to hopefully get that result if I don't get it in this generation. And actually, I'm pretty happy with a lot of these. I don't know if we need to change them. I can, of course, increase the aperture here and maybe get a better blur, but I'm liking these. Also, one thing that I should note is that I'm generating a 1:1 aspect ratio image, but my photo here is not 1:1 aspect ratio, and that's okay. If you're happy with the result, you can just fill that in Photoshop using generative fill. I'll show you how to do that. But I think we're going to go with this. I like these a lot. I don't think there's a reason why we need to choose a different one. The difficult part now is finding the one that I like best. And I don't know, chat, what do you guys think? Oh man, they're all pretty good. I kind of like this one the best, but they're all good. So there's really no need to stress over this. Here's another cool feature with Adobe Firefly. When you click on the share button, you can get access to these options. Download your image, which obviously means you can download this photo into your device. Copy a link means that Firefly will generate a link that you can then share to anyone, even people without a Creative Cloud account. Those people will be able to view the image, view the prompt in the settings on the right, the effects. If the person is logged into a Creative Cloud account, or to an Adobe ID, I should say, if the person has an Adobe ID, then they can edit the prompt and adjust the settings to remix the image. And those new variations will not affect your original image. They'll be completely separate. So if you generate something that's really cool, make sure that you share a link and send it to someone else. You can copy the image to your clipboard, so you can copy and paste it into Photoshop or any other app, edit it in Adobe Express, submit it to the Firefly gallery, or save it to a library, which is what I'm going to do in this case. I'm just going to go to Save to Library. I'll press Continue, and Firefly is going to apply credentials to make sure that people know that it was a generated image, and it saves it into a library that I chose in the past called Adobe Firefly. Obviously, that's where I save my Firefly generations, but you can change your default library if you want. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is go into Photoshop. And in my libraries panel, I should have that graphic in here. And there it is, the snow globe. I'm going to drag it in here. And I can now place it into position, maybe right about here. Maybe I want it to be larger. And by the way, when you're scaling from the corner here, if you hold Alt on Windows or Option on the Mac, you can constrain the scale so that it doesn't distort. If I don't hold the Shift key as I'm doing that, notice that I can move it around like that. So hold Shift, Alt, Shift and Option, and scale and drag up, and try to place it wherever you think would look best. This looks pretty good. Cool. I'm going to go into the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to drag a selection on the bottom part. And we talked about this before, that I probably wasn't going to have enough space to cover my vertical format here. So I can use generative fill with an empty prompt and just generate. And Photoshop will fill in that area with whatever content it thinks will work. And we'll see the 3 generations that Photoshop will give us, and we can just pick the one we like the best, or generate more until we get something that we like. Cool. Let me just see which one works best. You know what? They're all really good. I don't, maybe the second one, I don't know. So now we can just put that into a group. When you select 2 or more layers, you can press Control G on Windows, Command G on the map to put that into a group. And I can just call this background, BG. And I don't need this empty layer, so I'll just get rid of that. By the way, I'm always saving as I work. I've had a lot of experiences where I wasn't saving as I worked and I lost a lot of work. So now you'll probably see me just save like instinctively. I won't even think about it, which is what I just did there. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to actually remove the snow globe here, because I want to have it in separate layers, and you'll see why in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the elliptical marquee tool, make a selection like so. And then I'm going to go into the lasso tool and I'm just going to hold Alt and Windows, Option on the Mac to remove or subtract from my selection. And I'm going to subtract that bottom part. Whoops, I subtracted the wrong thing. Actually, you know what? Here, I'm going to show you guys an advanced technique. Instead, forget about that lasso tool. We're going to do something advanced. If you hold Alt and Shift, notice the cursor. Instead of, when I hold Alt, you'll see that minus next to the cursor. And if you hold the Shift key after that, you'll see an X. And what that means is that you'll intersect the selection. So I'm going to make a selection on top here. And basically, when I make this selection on top, Photoshop will keep everything that you selected and will remove the selection from the areas that you not select. So there you go. And what I'm going to do now is just go into the generator fill and generate to create an empty space. I hope. We'll see if that works. Cool. And not exactly what I had in mind, but this one works pretty okay. Still not what I wanted, but that's okay because I can now come in here and then just make a selection right about here. And hopefully that gives me what I want. We'll see. So I'll generate again. And you know what, guys? I got to keep an eye on the time because I tend to go over. And I know we have a lot of other cool streams coming up. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Look at that. That looks amazing. So, you know, I know that for sure I'm never going to want to delete these variations or adjust them in any way. So I'm going to select both and press Control E on Windows, Command E on the Mac to just put them in one layer. That saves me from having a overbloated file. So, you know, it's a lot smaller, a lot easier to work with. It's just a single layer. Everything is fantastic. And the reason that I'm doing all of this work is so that I can now hide it all. I'm hiding all of that. And I'm going to go and select the brush tool, and with white as my foreground color, I'm going to reveal using a soft brush. I want to paint using a soft brush. So I'm just going to reveal the content there. See that? And the reason I'm doing all of this is so that I can then have the ability to put whatever I want in there. But I want to keep the edges because the edges are super cool and I don't want to composite those back in later. So I'm just painting with white to reveal that empty background. I still don't know if I'm going to keep the snow back here or not. So I'll hide it for now. If I need it, I'll bring it back. That is the beauty of working with layer masks. They allow you to show and hide pixels. You don't delete things for good. You can bring them back later on if you wish. Cool. So now, pro trick, hold Alt and Windows, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask to actually see it. And if there's any black areas, just paint with white to reveal. I was missing a spot there. And, you know, I could probably spend some time fine-tuning it even further, but I don't think we need to do that. Also, now that we have all this stuff ready to go, we can think about what to put in there. What are we going to put in there? You can put anything you want. You can put yourself. We can generate something. And since this stream is all about Adobe Firefly, then let's generate something to put in there. And I was thinking that we could put in, you know, like a little house or something. So I guess I can type in miniature. Did I spell that correctly? I think I did. Miniature holiday house with snow and pine trees on a plain studio backdrop, and I'll generate. By the way, if I wanted to, I could click on clear styles to remove this photo effect, but I don't want to because that's what I want. I want an actual photo. But what I can do is work with the color and tone, lighting, and composition. All these look great. I could probably use those, but if for whatever reason you generate something and it doesn't work, come in here and adjust like the composition, for example, right? You can do maybe shot from above, shot from below, micro photography, you know, close up, whatever you think works best for you. Maybe you can increase the aperture if you want to blur it more. Completely up to you. Completely depends on what you want to do. I'm actually liking this red one a lot. But just to show you how some of these things work, maybe I'll make some changes. Maybe I'll, increase the aperture to blur it more. And maybe I'll do like a close-up. Let me see, what other options do we have here? Yeah, I guess a close-up would work. And then I'll click on generate and notice that below here we have the close-up effect tag. And then I can generate more stuff. I'm sorry, I could apply different settings from the photo settings if I wanted to. I mean, these are all great as well. I kind of like the red one still, the original one back here better. So we'll just use this one for now. And again, you can click on the share button and save it to a library. I'll press continue and it's applying the content credentials and it's saving it to my Adobe library. By the way, I just click on that change button in that notice that came up. And from here, I can select to choose a different library. And then right here, you see where it says set as default. That will then become my default library if I click on that and choose save. But in this case, I want to save everything to my Adobe Express library. Cool. Let me see if there's any comments in the chat. Yes, the banana tool pulse stream. Yeah, it's funny. The banana tool came out, I want to say like in 2017-ish. And one of the Adobe engineers told me about it, Photoshop engineers. And I've had a banana tool in the toolbar ever since. And by the way, if you want to add a banana to your toolbar, you can hold shift and click on done. And that will add a banana to your toolbar. If you want to remove it, click on it, go to edit toolbar, and then hold Alt on Windows, Option in the Mac, and click done, and that will remove that banana. But why would you remove the banana? You should keep it in there. Anyway, so now I have this miniature little house here that I can drag into my working project, and I can mask this out. So I can scale this in and figure out, like the best positioning for it. And I can start with a rough mask. I don't know exactly what I want to keep yet, but I'm just going to start with a rough mask and then I'll decide what to keep. So I'll make that selection there and I'll scale this in, place it in here. And this can take some time trying to figure out what you want to keep, what you don't want to keep, but use the soft brush and then paint with black to hide. So I can, there we go. Maybe move this up now that I realize that the snow goes up a little bit higher. Maybe like right here. And then reveal, I guess. There we go. You kind of have to spend some time blending it all in, of course. And since you guys are watching me do this, I don't want to spend like most of the stream fine-tuning these small details. So I'm going to be a little rough, but that's okay. You know what? I wasn't planning on showing this, but I was talking to someone last night about generating brushes with AI. And I'm trying to figure out how I can incorporate it into the stream because it's really cool. But it might be a little difficult because I'm not really working with anything with hair, but I'll still show you guys because I think it's super cool. You guys know me. I like to just show random tips. So I have a 1080 by 1080 document here. I'm going to go and create a circle here and I'll just fill it with gen fill, and my prompt will be hair strands, and I'll generate. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I get what I have in mind, but I was practicing to do something last night. That's not a hair strand. That's more of what I wanted. But still not what I wanted. I wanted just a bunch of like random hair, just all over the place, to then do something super cool. There you go. This is more of what I wanted, but it's not exactly there yet. So I'm going to click on generate one more time. And if it doesn't work, I'll still use that because I think it'll work for what I want to show you guys. But This is just like the quick break tip. Oh my God. None of these are exactly what I wanted, but you know what? Maybe we can use this one. I think we can. Yeah, we can definitely use this one. So I'm going to now go into edit and choose define brush preset. And I can just call this hair, press OK. So now I have a cool hairbrush. See that? So then when I'm working on a composition, I can just paint with that and look at those edges. See those edges there? I can use that like behind someone's head. So if I'm working on a project where, I'm just going to type in, I'm sure I have a photo of like a man here or something, or of a person. I should have just used the word person. Yeah, even with this girl. And, I do remove background or something like that. Notice the hair here along the edges of her body, they're going to be very difficult to select, right? So instead of trying to spend hours selecting that very difficult to select hair, what you can do is just remove it all. So I'll remove it all. There you go. And it looks terrible, right? But if I now create a new layer and use that crazy brush I just made, I can just now paint edges. And let me just go into the solid color here just so you can actually see what I'm doing. And now, I can paint those edges back in and, rotate my brush and, just kind of paint in the details of those hair strands on the image, and obviously spend a little more time blending those in. But that's what I wanted to show you, that you can actually create really cool detailed brushes like this using generative fill in Photoshop. Anyway, that was a quick break for something random I wanted to show you guys, because I know that's what I always do, just show you something that hopefully you probably didn't know before, and it helps you spark some ideas. Single hair would have been a great call, Jeffrey. Yeah, maybe single hair strands, individual hair strands, Anna. Yep. So Cody Bear, hairball is what I tried yesterday. And what I tried yesterday when I did hairball, I got this return here. Let me show you. I think it's still here. Yeah, I got that. So not exact. This could work great for like a dog, or a cat or something like that. But yeah, so you can definitely do that. But good call. Cool. Let's now continue with this. Now, one of the things you might be realizing is, hey, we did all this work, but this doesn't look too realistic. There's no real reflections on this sphere. And I could spend some time trying to like Photoshop in the original reflections. And some of these may be quite good, like for example, maybe the one on top, I can decide to keep, yeah, I like the one on top a lot, actually. So I'm going to go and paint with white here to bring back the one on the top right, because that one is like super good, right? You want to keep, and I don't think I'll need any of the actual background in that part. So I'm going to just bring back some of those highlights that kind of help establish that this is a glass sphere, right? But what if I want more? Well, we can have our good friends at Firefly generate something for us. And one of the things that I'll generate now is an overlay of a glass sphere. So I can type in the prompt glass sphere against a black background. And I don't want anything with color. So I want to be sure that I get something that's black and white. So under color and tone, I'm just going to choose black and white and I'll generate. So now, hopefully, I'll get a black sphere that is reflective. And I can use that as an overlay on my composite. So we'll give it a moment here. There we go. Now it's a question of which of these works best. To be honest with you, I'm not really happy with any of them. So I'll click refresh and then I'll just pick from one of the 6, whichever one I like better out of the 6, not to waste too much time, because we are about 20 or so minutes away from being done. And I have a whole lot more to show you. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat. Cool. Catherine is asking, I haven't been watching What's with the Hair. Nothing, just random tip. Cool. All right. I guess, I don't have to use a single one. I can use multiple. So why don't we do that? I'm going to click on share, save to library. I'll save that one to my library. And which other one do you think might be good? I don't know. We'll maybe this one. I don't know. We can use them all. So I'll save this one to the library. Press continue. I'll go back into Photoshop and I'll go back into that library here. And there it is, the first one. And the second one's coming in. So I can just drop that in there. And now I can change the blending mode to screen and just place this wherever I think will work. I can adjust it and transform it, just to give it more detail, rotate it if need be. It doesn't have to be facing the same way. We'll just say that that's good. Reduce the opacity. And then I'll fill everything with black when you, or the mask, I should say. When you hold Alt on Windows or Option on the Mac and click on the layer mask icon, you create an inverted mask. And actually, you know what? I should say this because there is some confusion. So, when you create a layer mask, it's white, right? So white reveals, black conceals. So it's completely white. It means that this mask is infinitely white. When I select the mask here and I click and drag with the move tool, the mask is moving, but it's infinitely white, right? It's completely white. Now, if you just fill it with black and then you do the same thing, notice that the mask is no longer infinitely white. See that? See how all I really did was create this black box? So that's why I don't like doing that. What I like to do instead is holding Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and clicking on the layer mask icon. That creates an infinitely black box. So that's the difference. Infinite black box or infinite black mask, not just a black box. So now that it's infinitely black, I can paint with white to only reveal certain areas. See that? So now I'm only revealing certain areas there. And obviously I don't want to go over the edges where there is no actual sphere. So I'll tap on the X key to make my foreground color black and I'll just paint, and you can spend your time doing this. Then I'll grab the other one that we brought in. I don't know where we're going to place it, so we'll figure that out. Let's see. We'll make it screen first, and then we'll scale it and rotate it accordingly. We'll figure out where it goes, right? We can rotate it, and I don't know. We'll just say that this looks good, like right here. I like those two highlights there. So that's what we'll do. Make it infinitely black, and just paint with white on these areas like so. So now it looks like we actually have something that's made out of glass rather than something that wasn't made out of glass. It was just like nothing. Here's the trick. I'm going to paint with white on this area here. And then I'm going to go into edit and fade. And with the fade tool, you can fade the last adjustment that you applied. So I kind of want to get that low reflection going there. And then I can hide everything that shouldn't be there. Cool. And you can, of course, reduce the intensity as well. Anyway, so that allows us to have that look there. Reflection. There we go. So that is the result. Pretty cool, right? Let me see if there's any comments in the chat. Cool. Rick, I learned something new. Curious to know, what did you learn, Rick? And thank you, everybody, for the nice comments. Cool. So now we have this. And wait, what did I do with it? Did I accidentally delete? Oh, no, never mind. There it is. So this should be on top, right? There we go. So we have this on top. We have this that's the inside of it. And the reason that it doesn't look that good is if you notice, there's a blue tint on the snow here and there isn't on top. So we can probably use the selected color adjustment layer, which is a super weird adjustment layer. It basically allows you to add or subtract colors to colors. What does that even mean? Well, from this drop down, you have all these different colors and these tones. And for example, if I select neutrals, I can now add a color or subtract a color to the neutrals. So for example, I can add cyan, see that? Or subtract it, which will give me red. So the opposite of cyan is red. The opposite of magenta is green. And the opposite of yellow is blue. If you forget that, just create a color balance adjustment layer and you'll see the relationship here. For some reason, these sliders don't show that awesome relationship between those sliders. But the point is that now I can add, maybe add a little bit of cyan reduce the yellow a little bit. So now we're starting to get some blue there. See that? So before and after, see how we have this warm tone on the whites there? But by applying that adjustment, we started to get some blue, which matches the rest of the image. And I think it looks much better. Something else that I might consider doing is selecting this layer, going into filter and choosing camera raw filter and try to bring in some of the detail that's here in the snow. And we can do that a number of different ways. For example, one thing that I might just try right off the bat is going into the light section and just reducing the highlights a little bit to try to bring out some of that detail. I could also probably go into the effects panel and increase the texture and the clarity just to try to get a little bit more of that detail there. So before and after. And I think that looks much better. I think it works. We'll see. And there you go. Yeah, I think it works. Before and after. I don't know. I just think having detail on that snow makes it more interesting than not, but that is completely subjective. Cool. So we have all this stuff here now. And we need to figure out what to do with it so that we can take it into Adobe Firefly. By the way, one last thing I should mention with, I'm sorry, I meant to say Adobe Express, but one thing I should mention about Adobe Firefly before we move on to Adobe Express is that you could also use it to generate overlays. So for example, one of the things that I can do here is type in snow fall overlay and we'll see what happens. And I'll just type in on black background just to be safe. Black background. There we go. So that I can composite that into my image there. Awesome. So Rick, you were referring to the infinite black mask. Yes, something that depending on what I'm doing is what I prefer to use. I don't always use it, of course. And, like you can keep generating until you get something that works for you. In this case, we'll just say that this one works great. So I'll save this to my library. I'll press continue. You know what? The only reason I don't show again and hit continue is that sometimes I'm teaching this stuff. So I have to tell people what the prompt says, or at least warn them. So generally speaking, I would have hit that don't show this again box so it doesn't come up again. But since I'm teaching it, sometimes I have to just deal with these pop-ups to explain them to people. But anyway, so libraries panel, and we have our snow, and I can just make that a little bit larger and change the blending mode to screen. And another thing that I can do is go back into the hue and saturation adjustment layer, or I'm sorry, I haven't gone there yet. Go back into the adjustment layers and choose a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Click on this icon to clip it to the layer below, click on colorize, and now I can select a blue and increase the saturation here. And that also helps it bring the image together because there's a strong blue tint over this entire image. So if this were a real photo, some of that will be visible in the snow as well. And then I can use a layer mask to maybe paint away some of the snow down here because it doesn't really match. But now we'll make it match and maybe reduce the opacity. It's a little too intense. But anyway, you can see that that's the final result. And now we can take all of this into Adobe Express. And we have to really think about how we're going to separate this, right? Because the goal is to create a template in Adobe Express that basically separates everything into different layers, and whatever's here in the middle, we could replace, right? So think about it this way. We need a background image. Basically, that's my background, and we need a reflection. And then the middle part here, this middle part here could be anything we want, right? So basically, we need 2 layers. If you wanted to, you could probably also do that as a single layer, and then this on top, and then this, and then you just put anything you want in the middle. But we're not going to do that. We're going to make it super easy and then just do 2 layers. So we have this background image. There's a lot of ways of getting things into Express. You can, of course, do link Photoshop documents. you can actually bring in a PSD into Adobe Express that'll show you the layers. But we're not going to do that. And the reason we're going to do that is because I have too many other layers that might create some issues in Adobe Express. So we're just going to simplify it and export each layer at a time. So I'm going to start with the background. So I'm just going to make a save it, and we can save this in so many ways. We can, just right click on the layer here and choose quick export as a PNG. That'll work. You can go into file, export as, or quick export as a PNG, whatever you want. So I'm here now, so I'm just going to export this as a PNG, and then this came up on another screen. So let me just bring that here. And the reason that I'm exporting as a PNG is because I want to keep this doesn't have any transparency, so this could be a JPEG, but just to stay consistent, I want to keep the transparency on all my elements that I have. So I'm going to export as a PNG. So I'll export as a PNG, and to find this, I'm just going to save it into my desktop here. And I have this Adobe Live Holiday folder, and I'll just call this one stream, because just in case I didn't have any internet for whatever, or I guess if I didn't have any internet, I wouldn't be able to do the stream. But just in case Firefly wasn't working, I did save some files in advance just in case. But anyway, so this is going to be my background. I want to save the background. There it is. It's saving. Then I'm going to go, and I don't need to save that because I just want to create a template. So this I will not save. I have my reflection that I want to save on its own layer. Now, this is the thing. With Adobe with Adobe Express, you can use blending modes. So I can theoretically save this and use the screen blending mode in Express. I could also take the time and only save the bright pixels, and that will work too. But, in this case, we're going to use a blending mode. So I'm going to save this, and then we'll use the screen blending mode. So file, export as, and I could have just done, save as PNG, and it would have been the same thing. Format PNG, make sure transparency is active. We want to keep the transparency. I'll export to this one, and I'll just call this one reflection, and click on save. There it is. So now we're going to go to our good friends at express.adobe.com. And from here, we are going to upload that image, which is this one here. And we're starting from a photo. And what I want to do is create a holiday animation. There's a question in the chat. Is it true that the new version of Photoshop has a function to convert a regular photo into video? I mean, something like Midjourney. No, there is no function that allows you to turn a photo into video. There might be a plugin, a third-party plugin that works with Photoshop that allows you to do that, but there is nothing in the app that allows you to do that. And for some reason, this is taking a little longer than expected. Not really sure why, but we'll give it another second. And if it doesn't upload, I guess I can try again. Let me see how much time I have. I know that I don't have much time. I have about 10 minutes, and that should be plenty. I'll give it a few more moments, but yeah, this is taking way too long. I'm going to close that out, and I'll try again. Maybe I can try. I'm just going to do this Instagram square. Even though we're not really doing a square, it doesn't matter. I'll click on this one. And now we're going to start with this template that is an Instagram square. We're not working with a square, but that's okay. For some reason, it looks like this is having some issues. You notice how the buttons here on the top right are not loading, which is not fun. And it's not allowing me to click on upload to the from device, which is what I want to do to show you guys how this works. I'll refresh this button now, or this window, and see if that helps. And it's not helping. All right, so we're going to go to plan B. So plan B is that I have all this already done in my projects here. So if I open up a project that I already did, maybe I can walk through how I did it if it loads. So I apologize about that. And yes, guys, it looks like our good friends at Adobe Express are having some issues loading the projects. And it's definitely not my internet, because you guys can see me and I can work with Adobe Firefly. All right. So since Adobe Express is not helping us, why don't I just show you guys some cool tips and tricks with Adobe Firefly? Maybe something that you probably don't even know. So, all right. In Adobe Firefly, you have this super cool feature called generative fill, right? And the generative fill allows you to upload images. And I have this, I'm pretty sure I need an honest opinion. After I show you this, let me know if you knew this or not, because I'm trying to show you stuff that you guys don't know. So make it worth your time watching Adobe Live. So let me just open up a file I have saved here. Since I wasn't planning on showing it, I have to spend some time locating it. So sorry that Adobe Express wasn't working. But I have a file here. I thought it was in there. It's not there. It's going to be this one, I believe. You know what? I know where it is. It's in my libraries panel. We'll go into Photoshop and I'll find it here. You know what? I'm going to do you something even cooler. I just thought about it. So what I was going to show you was a photo of Venice. Why don't I generate a photo of Venice in Firefly? So I'll type in Venetian canal with colorful buildings. And I misspelled Venetian. So Venetian canal with colorful buildings. And we should get a Venetian canal with colorful buildings. And I want this to look like a photo, and I'm going to make this portrait style. Or actually, we'll make it doesn't matter. And this actually looks like a photo already, so it's cool. Yeah, we'll go with this one. So when you click on edit, one of these images, you can go into generative fill, right? Oh my God, really? Nothing's working for me today. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save this, and hopefully this can download to my computer. There we go. We're saving this. And what I really wanted to show you was when you go into the generative fill and upload an image, there's a feature that I don't see a lot of people using. Oh my God, generative fill is not working today. Oh my God, so I can't even show you that. Oh, there it is. Now it's working. Great. So you probably know how generative fill works, right? You can come in here and paint something just like you can in Photoshop, and you can, leave it blank if you want to like remove something. So in this case, if I leave blank, hopefully it removes that boat, correct? So I'm sure you probably knew that. You can also use this feature to paint something. You gotta press keep. You can also use this feature to like paint something here and then give it a prompt. And I'll just type in the prompt like yellow rubber ducky or something. We'll see if I get a yellow rubber ducky floating in that water. So that's you probably already knew this, but the stuff that I wanted, it's pretty cool. Look at that. It works great. But what I wanted to show you is something that not a lot of people use, which is this feature. When you paint on something, look at this. I'm going to just paint on this, like get rid of everything. Everything's gone. Boom. There's this little icon here. When I click on that, you get these super cool settings, right? I'm going to leave them blank for now. I'm not going to touch anything. I'm just leaving them on default. So if I just type in the words oil painting and generate, you're going to get an oil painting, but it's not going to be of Venice. It's this dude, whoever he is, and brush strokes, and it's not Venice. So I'm going to press cancel. But if I click on this icon here and adjust the preserved content slider, now I may get something that looks like the painting, or I'm sorry, I will get a painting that looks like the photo that I generated. So when I click on generate using the same prompt, oil painting, I will get something that hopefully looks like that Venice image, but as an oil painting. And there you go. You can kind of see it there. This one's probably a little better. This one's probably a little better. I can press cancel, click on this icon, and maybe drag the slider further to the left and generate. And again, this requires a lot of fine tuning. It doesn't work on the first try, you have to play with the sliders and maybe adjust the prompt a little bit. But you can see now how we're starting to get a painting that looks like my original image. I'll press cancel again and maybe drag the slider further to the left and generate again. The reason that I don't drag all the way to the left is because I'll basically get another photo that looks like my original photo. Notice that this doesn't look as a painting as much as the other one. I guess it does depending on the variation. But if I click and drag this to the left, all the way to the left and generate, I'll basically get the same photo again. There's going to be some differences. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it won't be a painting. So yeah, see that? It changes a little bit. So I have to fine tune this slider until I get something that works. And you can try that with different keywords. I could probably do watercolor next and see how that works. You see that painting? Let me try a watercolor. Watercolor. Oh, I should have used the word painting. Watercolor painting. Cool. And I probably need to adjust this a little bit more and maybe drag it over to the right, click on generate. Rick is asking, is that the same as 50% mask density in Photoshop? That is correct. And actually, to be more exact, Rick, it's easier to think about 50% mask density in Photoshop as preserved content. I think it's much more, what's the word? It's better described in Firefly, but yeah, it's the same thing. In Photoshop, you're reducing the intensity, and in Firefly, you're basically keeping more of the original. So basically, you see how it says new here? So when the slider is here below new, whatever you generate, it's going to be completely new. It doesn't care about what's below. And then the further you drag the slider to the left, you're going to get closer to the original. That's why when we drag the slider here and generate it, we basically got the same image. There's differences, of course. It's not going to be 100% the same, but it's like 99% the same. See that? See how it's basically the same? It changes just a tiny little bit. So that's the way you can think about it. Do you want something completely new or something that's basically like the original or something in between? So something in between would be take a little bit of the original and take a little bit of my prompt and generate something. So that's how this works. I misspelled painting. Jesus. And thank you for letting me know. Pain. Yeah. Jesus. Good eye. Painting. I'll generate using that now. But the point is that that slider allows you to control the intensity of these things. And that's how that works. Let me know in the chat if that was new to you, because I don't see people using this technique, and I think it's very, very powerful. Something that you can do as well is, well, like if we were using like somebody's face or something, we could maybe paint half of this, paint it in half. And then this half could be the oil painting, and then reduce that to like, I don't know, what was working good with this prompt, like right about here, I think, and generate. So then like half the person's face is a photo and the other half is a painting. So you can create some really cool effects using this technique. Or you can take it might work better with more actually. Or you can take a full version of a painting and then in Photoshop, merge it together with the actual photo, and that'll give you more flexibility. But as you can see, you can do so many cool things with Firefly. You just have to play around with these settings. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. A lot of people are saying it was new to them. Some people not. Great. Amazing. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sorry I couldn't show you Adobe Express. There was something going on, but feel free to download the template that I provided. Basically, what that template allows you to do is put anything you want inside of this globe, and you can have a nice holiday graphic animation that you can send to your friends and family. Thank you so much for joining us. Stick around for more Adobe Live. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat. You guys were amazing. Happy holidays. And I will talk to you guys again next time. Thank you so much. Bye.